As I'm sure you've already heard by now, there's been another shooting of an unarmed black man by a white police officer. And as you already know, today that means there's going to be chaos in the streets. People have already started rioting, and there's been several fires that's been started in several cities all across America. Now, this channel is called What Do You Meme? And what memes are, there's these slogans and these sound bites that get passed on in culture that people accept without giving them serious thought or reflection. And today there's a specific meme that gets passed around when situations like this happen. The reason I say this is because most people don't take these situations on a case-by-case basis. Instead, what they do is they lump all of them together into the same bucket, as if every situation is the exact same when it involves an unarmed black man and a police officer. And I see this on both sides, by the way. Both sides tend towards acting as if there's no difference in one situation over another, and they either accept or reject all of these sorts of situations without looking carefully at the specific situation and try to be as unbiased as possible. The real culprit is the fact that memes are taken without a moment of serious consideration, and in cases like this, people don't consider the differences in the different situations. As a result, people become their worst enemies and really hurt their own case far more than anyone else could. Just take a look at what happened in this situation. Now, if you remember when the whole George Floyd situation went down, I said that by just going off of the footage that we first saw, to me, it looked pretty bad for the cop and it seemed inexcusable based on the available footage. But after looking at the Jacob Blake footage, I came away with a different impression than I did with the whole George Floyd situation. Now, before I explain why, first I just want to say first off that even though Jacob seems to be in stable condition from the last that I heard, I still don't like seeing anyone die or get shot for that matter. To me, these type of situations are always grievable, even if for no other reason than the fact that it could have been avoided. The thing is, because of all of the politics surrounding it, it's really easy for us to dehumanize the situation and not forget that there's actually a human, a person who was involved in this sort of thing. When I see Jacob, I see someone's son, someone's friend, someone's cousin, and his life matters not only to his family, but his life also matters to us as Christians, because most importantly, Jacob's life matters immensely to God. God loves Jacob, and we as Christians should love him as well. So now, with that being said, based only on the footage that we have as of today, Jacob seemed to be clearly in the wrong, so we just gotta keep it real. He had a warrant out for his arrest, and on the footage, it looks like he was actually fighting with the cops. Then he started walking away from the cops when they told him to stop, and he kept walking, and then the cops drew their guns on him. Then, with the cops' guns drawn on him, he seemed to not only ignore the cops, but he also opened his car door and reached inside of his car. Now, unless there's something that I don't know, that seems like it was not the best move on Jacob's behalf. That doesn't seem like a very wise decision to me. The saddest part, though, is that he's the father of three, and his three kids were in the car and witnessed the entire thing. Now that, in my opinion, is probably the saddest part of the entire situation, because I think about just how his kids are going to be impacted by this, and this is going to affect the way that they understand and think of police as they grow older. But I also want you to put yourself in the shoes of the police officer. As a police officer, you don't want to die either. There's countless cases of people who reach into their cars, grab their guns, and then kill the cop. But from the cop's perspective, the only thing that I don't understand is why the cop decided to shoot him 7 times at point blank range. And it seems like 1 or 2 would have been enough. But again, unless there's something that I don't know about cops and how they're trained to handle these sorts of situations, 7 times sounds like a little bit of an overkill, if you ask me. But based off of so far what we know in the case, Jacob doesn't seem to be justified in resisting arrest, and the cop does seem to be justified in using force against Jacob. And now this is why all of this matters. The reason why this matters is because the narrative that unarmed black men are being killed by racist police has become somewhat of a meme in today's culture. The responses to Jacob's shooting have been completely irresponsible. People are rioting and going crazy as if the only reason that Jacob was shot in the first place was because he's black and cops are racist. But of course, if Jacob was wrong in this situation and the shooting was justified, then all of these riots and everything else like that are just uncalled for. Now we have businesses being burned to the ground, and unfortunately, we're probably going to see more people die behind this, all in the name of justice. They think that what they're doing is defending justice, but if they're wrong about this situation and the police were justified, then what they're actually doing is defending injustice. Now, because so many people have been trained not to think and not to see nuance and instead just act, it leads to so much more division, so much more pain, and ultimately so much more destruction in all of society for everyone. But even worse, when people protest in the name of unarmed black men being killed unjustified justifiably by the police, then when they lump cases in like this one, it actually hurts the cause more and makes people not take it as seriously when there are real cases of racial injustice that need attention. How you choose to start your race ultimately affects how you will finish it. And this is why when the whole narrative was being pushed around that black people are being murdered by the cops in the street for no other reason than just being black, after like the whole George Floyd stuff, my first thought was whether or not that was actually the case. If it is true, then the outrage is justified. And I'm not saying that people should therefore riot and all of these other things. That's not what I'm saying. But people being upset at it is justified. Because if it isn't true, and that's the foundation that all of this stuff is built on, all of the chaos that we see in the streets and everything else, then everything that's been erected off of that theory is being built on the wrong foundation, a false premise, something that isn't really an issue to begin with. If it's not true that black people are being killed by the police at a higher rate than other races, then not only is all of the outrage about it unjustified, but any solutions put forth to fix the issue are invalid or irrelevant. Now, to be clear, I do think that there are some issues of injustice that have left a lot of black people at a disadvantage that should be discussed. And I also think that Christians should have every impulse to stand as allies against true issues of injustice wherever they are. But that's a topic that I'll be saving for another video that I'll be putting together soon. But with that being said, how we react to injustice as Christians should be different than how the rest of the world reacts to instances of injustice. For example, I don't believe that Christians should be involved in these riots and burning and looting and stuff like that, even though some Christians have disagreed with me on this. And that's what I talk about in this video. So go ahead and click on this video and I'll see you over there. But the next time that you find yourself accepting these cultural memes without stopping to give it some serious thought and consideration, what are you going to say? What do you mean?